So what influenced your decision to go back home?
In fact, when I go back, everybody was like, you are a very rare gem. How will you go there and then you return back to Nigeria? And that's why I was a qualified ophthalmologist in Nigeria. Funmi, make sure you write all the mock exams. First, I registered for the wrong one. Second, I failed it. Ophthalmology is ophthalmology everywhere. So back home in Nigeria, Africa generally, the doctor is the master, is the boss, and the patients are, when they see you, everybody is rolling over, and we are being worshipped like a god, apparently. You're a doctor, and so what? You go to work, it's dark, you come back, and everybody looks depressed. Nigerians need us. That is more satisfying for me, helping my people.
Hi guys, welcome to my channel. And if you're new here, my name is Sisi and I'm a Ghanaian medical doctor working in the UK. And in this episode, I'm so excited to be bringing to you Funmi. Funmi is my friend from when I did my MSc, that's at London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. She also was doing an MSc there. She's going to tell us more about that. And what I found so interesting about her story is that we did PLAB at the same time, and then came to the UK, did her MSc, went back to Nigeria, came and worked after doing her PLAB and everything. And then now she's back in Nigeria. And I just felt like I was so inspired, first of all, because somehow I also have that feeling of, I think I kind of would love to go back home. So I want to hear about what happened, your story.
Thank you very much. It's nice meeting up with you again. At least seeing you virtually since 2018. That was the last time we met.
2018. I last met you when
2019.
Yes, 2019 with the graduation. Yeah. And before that, I remember we had gone for IELTS.
Yes, I met you at the stadium. Yes.
Yes.
Our stories don't end. There's always meeting somewhere, somehow, and it's okay.
Yes. So I first met you when we had a mutual friend who was Nigerian, and she told you about me that I was also trying for the PLAB exam, and you were also trying for PLAB exam, because we did our PLAB one on the same day.
Yes.
So tell the people about your journey to the UK, and initially, what did you come to do? What was your MSc? And yeah.
Just like Sisi has mentioned, we met in 2017, now September, during the orientation. So I was on MSc Public Health for Eye Care at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. And as usual, the usual thing is that at the beginning, there are lots of orientation, you get to meet and greet people and all of that. Then we got talking and they kept mentioning this thing about GMC. Well, I didn't know anything about it. Maybe I'm a bit more conservative. So mine was just go to my normal medical school, did my normal postgraduate, and then this MSc came along the way, and then here was I in school. And of course, Sisi would, after one mentioned, she told us all her story and how she passed part 2, even though her mom was very ill. She was really encouraging. And she linked me up with Sisi, of course. Meet with Sisi. Sisi is going to give you all the materials and everything. And December was coming. I told Sisi, what should I do? And she's like, if you don't register for the exam, you're not going to do it. So first thing is to get registered. Once you're registered, then you're going to be committed to reading. I was like, okay, then let me give it a try. So I went on, I registered. Of course, IELTS was a criteria for the MSc. So I had one which was still useful for the registration. So I didn't need to write an IELTS exam again. Done with. So I remember 31st of December, while people were doing fireworks into the new year in London, I was on my desk trying to catch up. First of all, because I finished my my residency in ophthalmology, so I was a qualified ophthalmologist in Nigeria. But then having to go back to the basics of medicine again, was like, how was I going to go about this? It's been 6-8 years of being out of touch with the general medicine. I was like a more specialized person now in ophthalmology.
Hold on, Funmi. So you had finished your ophthalmology?
Yeah.
Was there no other option except PLAB? Did it have to be PLAB for you too?
So what happened is, close to the end of my residency training, another colleague in pediatrics and another in O&G mentioned MTI, Medical Training Initiative, apparently, where you're given a 2-year opportunity, I think on Type 5 visa, to come learn how practice is in the UK, and then you can go back to Nigeria. But then when we looked it up on the internet, ophthalmology did not really have anything about MTI. In fact, when I got to London, I went to the college, which was somewhere close to school and wasn't too far from my house. So I walked there, I discussed, and they sent me an email saying they don't usually sponsor, because it's like a dual sponsorship. They don't sponsor MTI in ophthalmology. So that would have been the other alternative.
Yes, if you want more details about MTI, I've made another video that I will link up here.
So what I found out later was that there is this ICO exam, which other colleagues in other centers were writing. And with that, they could get fellow FICO. And then with the FICO, they could get a GMC registration. But down the line, I think because they thought many people were using that route, they stopped giving GMC registration with it. So that was another alternative. So
does it still exist, that alternative?
ICO exams are still ongoing, but then they're not registering people. They're not giving people automatic GMC registration with it again.
What does ICO stand for?
International Council of Ophthalmology.
Is that similar to like Royal College exams of like psychiatry or MRCP?
Yes, something like that. They're not giving GMC with it again.
All right. Okay.
You don't
so
get
that's why
registration. So
that's why you
so people have virtually stopped writing it because they felt it was not being useful again. What's the essence of writing these exams if you cannot, it's not leading you to any end? So I had to write the PLAB exam with your encouragements, and then we went for the first exams together, and thankfully we all passed. And the next question was, when are we going to write PLAB 2?
Yes.
And for me, because I had to come back to Nigeria, so after the MSc exams, I had to come back to Nigeria to collect my data. So like everyone says, just make sure you have your money. Once you have your pounds, you can register for PLAB 2 anytime you want. I came back home, finished up everything, registered for the PLAB exam. And then by like first week of September, I was in Samson Academy to see how I could put myself together into the practice mode. And those 2 weeks were, oh my God, I have another colleague who is in family medicine. And I tell him, I say, it's easier for you. You do virtually everything of medicine. It's not like me that is really subspecialized, just about eye and other parts of the body. But he kept encouraging me. He said, Funmi, make sure you write all the mock exams and listen to all Samson's reviews. Just make sure. And in the class, everyone was like, it's crazy. How will you finish Samson PLAB on Friday and on Monday you're writing PLAB 2? When are you going to practice? It's not going to be possible, and all of that. But he kept encouraging me, and with that, I just moved on to London, packed my bags. The next day I was on my PLAB exam. And then thankfully, ID check. But they did the ID check for us. I don't know, maybe like guinea pigs just to start with. And that was done with. Came back to London. And I think 2 days later, 31st of September, I had to leave London because my ticket was already booked. My sponsors had booked my ticket for me. So I left.
That's for your scholarship.
30th of September, yes, 2018. So back to Nigeria, back to work.
So for context, because you had your family back home, you traveled by yourself, because your husband and your son, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so people might be wondering, why would you do that? She had her family back home.
I had my family back home, so, and it's always been around the family. So, because many people were like, well, even the job you have in Nigeria isn't a permanent one. Why don't you stay back in the UK? I'm like, that was not my plan, ab initio. And all of these plan things and GMC registration just came along the way. They were never in my plan. On and on, got to 2019. Of course, we had to do the ECFMG, the verification of my primary medical and medical certificates. So that dragged on a little while because I had to be back and forth between my university and this online app that I was using. And at some point, they sent it to the university. I tracked it. It was said to have gotten to the university. I didn't know I was supposed to go to the university, make some payments. And immediately I did that. It was cleared. And then they sent to GMC that they verified my primary medical certificate. And then after that, I had to get my certificate of good standing. And here came COVID.
Oh, this was
Yes.
now in COVID, 2020 now.
Yes, when 2020. So of course, all of 2019, my IELTS had expired. It's meant for 2 years. So by 2019, when I was going to do my registration GMC, IELTS had expired. So I had to write another one. And that took a lot of back and forth, which was, well, it was quite shocking. But then I was thankful that if this was what happened the first time when I was going to the UK, maybe I would have given up on everything.
Yes. How many times did you do it?
First, I registered for the wrong one. Second, I failed it. And then the third time, I got it. So, yeah,
That happened to me as well.
yeah, just some little 0.1 points, and you speaking 8, 9, and then they just bring you 6.9 somewhere, and that's all about it. That
So if
was
you're out
done.
there, take the English exam seriously, guys. Take the English exam seriously. Also, another thing you've mentioned is when you're reached the part of verifying your medical degree, you have to try and find out from your university what are their requirements.
Yes.
Because even me in my university, they need you to go and pay money in the bank. And if you don't pay that money, they'll not do anything, and your process
It's
will
not going
stall.
to, yeah.
So you need to find the right people at university to talk to about that.
2020 was here. I was done with English tests, and it was going to be lockdown. I wrote to my medical and dental council for the certificate of good standing. Thankfully, they could send it online. And remember, I talked about the face-to-face ID check, which was done for us in September, although it was supposed to take effect from October, because other colleagues that wrote the exams earlier on had to travel to the UK for their face-to-face ID check. So my friend in family medicine had to travel down to UK just for the ID check. So thankfully, that was out of the place because that was done for us in Manchester. So all I needed to do, send my certificate of good standing was sent to them. Everything is okay. And then I was licensed to practice 2020. And of course, it's going to come with all of the notes. You need to do yearly appraisal and revalidation. And I'm like, okay, so where am I going to start from? I can't be in Nigeria and be doing appraisals. It's not going to be possible. And along the way, ending of 2020, an opportunity came with University Hospital Southampton as a specialty doctor.
How long did it take you to find a job? People like to ask how many months and how many jobs did you apply for?
Fortunately, I think this was about the first job. So one of my senior colleagues actually posted it on one of our WhatsApp pages of my Ophthalmological Society of Nigeria. And when I saw it, I private chatted her and she was like, oh, it's a friend of mine that shared this. If you're interested, I could link you up with her, linked me up, and it was on Track Jobs. So on Track Jobs, applied for it. I applied for others, I think about 2 or 3 more, but this is the only one that I applied for. I was called for the interview and I got it. And of course, decision on how to move. Is the whole of my family moving? Am I going alone? What about my job? And all of that. It was a 1-year contract. And so there was a dilemma. I was very confused. I spoke with colleagues in the UK and this, like back home. Well, in Nigeria, usually for you to say you have a job, it should be a permanent one. So you're sure you're there for as long as possible. So, but they told me that it might even be a blessing in disguise. So that if I'm not okay with them at the end of the 1 year, it's either I change my job or change my role or things like that. I said, that's okay. It's eye casualty specialty doctor. So there was no on-call commitment. I tried to find out that, am I going to be taking calls? It was like, no. And then, of course, I was not going to be doing surgeries. The surgeries done, especially for the common cause of blindness, cataracts, is fecal, which I'm not yet proficient in fecal emulsification. I could do the other types. So we agreed on that. And then since it was a 1-year program, something funny happened. Like I said, my job wasn't a permanent one ab initio. The day I returned from the visa interview, I got a call from my hospital. You need to come and do your documentation for your permanent job and all of that. So that was another little confusion. But I sorted it out that way, and then I'd applied for a leave of absence for 1 year. Very sure I was going for 1 year and then coming back. So that was more, I was more relaxed about that. I was sure of what I was going for. It's not like it's new ophthalmology, it's the same old ophthalmology. So ophthalmology is ophthalmology everywhere. It's just a function of the kind of equipment you have and how service delivery is done. So back home in Nigeria, Africa generally, the doctor is the master, is the boss, and the patients are, when they see you, everybody is rolling over, and we are being worshipped like a god, apparently. But since I went to school, I realized you're a doctor, and so what? There was nothing about it, nothing about the title that I recognized even when I went for the master's. So you're just like any other person on the road. In fact, as a patient, you have more rights than the doctor. Got to work. And of course, like you asked the pros about work, I think I like the idea of shadowing. Unlike my work in Nigeria, you shadow, you get to learn how things are done, because you're going to be doing a lot of interactions with the computer. You need to get your logins and all of that. And of course, a lot of virtual learning. Back home, we do the continuing medical education, but I just think we're not giving it the seriousness like they do there, because there is fund available for you to do your courses, for you to travel conferences. So it's not like back, always ready to get your audits done so that at least you can have something to present at the end of the year. You book for online courses and you get paid for it. So it's now left to you to make sure you make the most of the opportunity, which I did my best. Once I recognized I had these opportunities, I did all my online courses. I attended even international conference, the American Academy of Ophthalmology, attended it online. Always have a shoulder to lean on.
Yeah.
There's a lot of multidisciplinary team approach to everything. You're not just on your own. So, well, you might see the eye units of UHS as a small one, but I saw it as very big because there were so many subspecialty, from medical retina, vitreoretina, uveitis, pediatrics, so that if everything I needed for the patients, the labs and the radiology units, they were fantastic. So I have a patient with giant cell arteritis, and this is an emergency. So I don't just tell the patient, take samples and go back home. No, take samples, send it as urgent, and within a few hours, I get the results back so that I can know what to do for the patient, because no one wants the patient to go blind on him. So get other colleagues, senior colleagues, to review the patients, get the rheumatologists, and people are always willing. Nobody wants the ball to stop on his desk. So I've had to call my consultants, and if they are not in, they link me up with the next person who is going to help me. And people are always willing, ready to support you. Colleagues and other workers around, the nurses, the healthcare assistants, everybody. And of course, because it wasn't just like you're strictly in eye casualty, I had opportunity. I was a medical retina. I enjoyed medical retina a great deal. So treating all the things at the back of the eye, because the machines were there to make diagnoses, to monitor treatments. We give intravitreal injections and all of that. So it was a lot of learning and putting into practice all the things I'd been reading about. Of course, like I said, because you really want to be careful about what happens. So it's like you're working on eggshells. You're being very thorough, you're being very careful, not just because you want to do it, but because you're afraid of litigation. You don't want anything to happen. And then they review the papers and they're like, who were those that saw the patient? Funmi, this person and that person. What did you do when the patient? So I realized when the patient comes in complaining, yes, it might be an eye problem, but then in passing, it just talks about something that has to do with the ear or the nose. I don't just allow it to sleep. I look into it. Yes, it's not my area, but then I try to get the patient to the next point, to the person that could help him or her. So a patient comes with blurry vision, I immediately call the neurologist, the CIA team, to make sure that this patient is Yes, the vision just went for a moment and then it's back again. But then I need to get the patients to be seen properly. So working on eggshell was like, no for me. But then it was good. It's put me in check to be more holistic in my approach to care of my patients, even back home here. And then another thing is, I think just generally the weather, it was quite cold for me. Although Southampton was more manageable compared to London. London was terribly cold for me. I think it was warmer for me in Southampton. And then these long nights, you go to work, it's dark, you come back, it's dark, and you rarely see the sunshine, and everybody looks depressed. And I think it's simply because, I think it's simply because you don't get enough sunshine. It's just like it's night after night. You wake up in the night, you sleep in the night, and you don't just see the sun at all. So I think that was quite depressing.
It is.
And but you're used to it now, so I'm sure you should be enjoying it now. And then I think another thing I like there is, of course, a lot of fun places to go, a lot of things to do. So if you plan your time very well, I think you have a lot of places to go for sightseeing.
So what influenced your decision to go back home? Although I think you've already explained that you had only 1 year contract and your job back home
Yes.
was now permanent. So of
And
course,
then number 3, of course, they wanted me to stay back. We need to know what your plan is. We want you to stay with us, but do you still want to stay with us and all of that? But then I had my mind made up, of course, to go back home because I wanted to be true to my honor, true to my words, because it's not going to be nice. You go and then, of course, everybody expected. In fact, when I go back, everybody was like, you are a very rare gem. How will you go there and then you return back to Nigeria? And I'm like, well, this is a decision I made even before leaving. And that was what gave me peace when I was leaving, the fact that I was going and coming back to Nigeria. And looking at it, one of the last patients I saw, a white lady, she had been to Ghana, and when she saw me, she was like, so what am I doing here? It's better out there in West Africa. So what am I doing in the UK? And I told her, well, I'll be going back. She was so glad that I was going back to Nigeria. Yes, she was very glad I was going back. And I am also glad I'm back. I keep telling people, like you asked the question about those who are desperate to go, it's okay. But you don't have to be desperate. You spend pounds in UK, you spend naira in Nigeria. It's not comparable. The economy is not comparable. And if you look at things, the economic downturn is everywhere. It is everywhere. I understand junior doctors are going to be going on strike.
the junior doctors are going on strike. So everywhere there's
Very good.
living crisis.
All because of you understand, the remuneration and all of that. So this thing goes on everywhere. But whatever give you job satisfaction, I think you should do it. I was talking to doctors. I was chatting with doctors, and I'm like, Nigerians need us more. I understand the bureaucracies of not getting a job. I was a consultant for over 6 years without a permanent job. Yes. So I had every reason not to stay back in Nigeria. But today I do not regret it. I'm able to put my public health into practice. I'm currently on a rapid assessment of blindness survey in one of the states in the country. So I think that is more satisfying for me, helping my people. I think that is it, helping my people. So with what I've learned, I try my best now. Every patient that comes my way, I do my best, try to locate where help can be gotten for the patient, call my colleagues across the country and get the patients referred to them. Of course, I cannot transport the patients there, but at least they see my efforts. And with that, I plead with them, I encourage them to please make use of the services. Services are not readily available, but where they are, you find some patients, it's just simply because they do not know where to access this service. And since I know, and then I could link up, because I think that's one of the things we learned during the MSc, networking, collaborating with others. And that's why we're still in touch. I'm still in touch with colleagues from America, different parts of Africa, Malaysia, and India. So I think that's one of the things we learned during the MSc. It doesn't end at LSHTM. We've gone beyond that. So from LSHTM, I was able to go for the American Academy of Ophthalmology live, simply because my course coordinator, she mentioned it in passing, applied for it, and because of LSHTM or stuff, I was fully sponsored to the US, had a week of understudying what ophthalmology practice is like in the US. And then the second week, I attended the conference simply because of LSHTM. So we do not know how far we can go. So let's not burn bridges. That's one thing somebody told me when I was leaving. Do not burn bridges. Don't be desperate. When it is time, you will certainly go. As per returning, well, if it pleases God to return, don't just accept anything, because the problem with accepting anything is that it puts you at a level that you might not be able to come out of, because you are being kept at this level. They feel, oh no, you cannot do this other job description, even though you're fit, you can do it. But then they feel, no, this is the level at which you should operate here. So make sure that whatever you're doing, it's still going to be open for you to progress in your career in the UK. So don't just be desperate and like, I just need to leave. Just give me anything. Do not take anything, because when you get there and begin to see anything, you're not going to be happy. And once you're unhappy, you'll be less productive. And once you're less productive, they feel you're not giving the best to their patients, and they feel, well, they begin to query everything you do. So you're not just left on your own. People are always watching over your shoulders, and that makes you to lose your confidence the more, which is not going to be very nice.
Thank you so much. And I really enjoyed hearing your perspective. And I also feel like I would love that, like to use my skills to help my people. I think it makes more sense. The only issue for me personally is the financial remuneration. But again, as you've said, even here, the cost of living is too high compared to
something else.
Like, because it's not like when we convert from our local currency, like back home, to pounds, it's not like you're going to be earning in pounds and living in your home country. No, you're earning in pounds, but you're living in the UK.
Even while in the UK, I think you can begin to liaise with colleagues back in Nigeria. If you still have a few of your colleagues back in Nigeria, in your field, how can you help them? So we have colleagues in the UK. Anytime we're having our Ophthalmological Society of Nigerian conference, some of them travel over just to come and impact knowledge, impact skills, and just to tell people what are the new advances because ophthalmology is a field that changes very rapidly. Is machine dependent, and what you knew about the machines 5-10 years ago, it's not the same thing again. So you get people that come around. Yes. So I think that's another thing. Funny enough, there are some things that you think are not available in your country. If you source for it, you will find it. So you can begin to liaise with them and see how you can help them even while still in the UK. And then, of course, I'm sure Uganda will be very glad to have you back again.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
If you watched the video up to this point, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want to watch more videos from me, please do subscribe. And if you have any questions for Funmi, then post them in the comments below and I'll ask her and I'll come and answer you. Thank you so much. Bye.
Yes.